Cyrus Garvin is a giant, and I like to think of him as like the mayor of Black Bluffton, and really the mayor of Bluffton in 1878. What he is able to do is really magical. It's obvious that he was a man who lived with a big vision and a big heart, but some really skilled hands, and with divine favor, really. And so if you don't love this story, it's like, check your pulse.
Reconstruction refers to the period after the Civil War, when independent land ownership was the dream for most freed people. These are people who had spent their lives working against their will for somebody else on somebody else's land. In most of the South, freed people never really have an opportunity to buy their own plots of land. What's different about Cyrus Garvey's experience and the experience of a lot of freed people in this area is that they are able to emerge from slavery and buy their own plots of land and work that land for themselves. And that independence and autonomy was really important for freed people.
You know, Reconstruction officially starts here in Beaufort County once the Union Army takes control of Beaufort County. Bluffton is really weird because it's still kind of Confederate influenced. And so just imagine, the story says the Baynard family cut and run. They left. But Cyrus is still here. And so he's trying to figure out, you know, all right, what are we doing? In '63, when the Union Army burns Bluffton, now he's really at a loss because it's likely that he lives here on this property in the vacation home of Joseph Baynard. I like to think of Cyrus Garvin as carefully maintaining the property up until the day that it's burned down. And then even after it's burned, he's just kind of picking up the pieces. That says a lot about his character and who he is.
Well, we obviously don't know a lot about his early years. We know more about him following freedom and what he did, and the lack of education that he had. I mean, he couldn't read or write. He couldn't even write his name, which is part of why the Garvin-Garvey confusion got started. But he must have been an amazingly tenacious man. I think it's amazing that we are sitting here today, almost 150 years, talking about Cyrus Garvey and his wife, Ellie. The two of them were just two among tens of thousands of slaves. And yet, we're sitting here talking about Cyrus today.
This particular house in Garvin-Garvey's history does reflect a larger story of the American experience. Before the war, obviously, Mr. Garvin was enslaved. After the war, he was a freedman, and this was an opportunity for him to build his own house. This reflects that freedman's status that he enjoyed, where he could own property, where he could build a house, where he could make a life for himself apart from the plantation.
It's quite possible that Mr. Garvin was the caretaker of this property long before it became his, right? So here's a man who every single day, he's got to make things happen. He's got to solve problems. He's got to preserve this house and this property for Mr. Baynard, and he's in the business of making things work. But suddenly, one day, he gets to make things work for himself, you know? And it wasn't just solving the problems for the owner's house and the owner's property. Now it's solving the problems for my property. And that's really cool.
He was an example of what you could do with nothing but, I mean, literally, when he came here and putting sticks together to build this house, what did he have?
being able to build a home with multiple rooms for your family in the years just following the Civil War, when an African-American family was previously just enslaved and forced to live usually in a cabin that held multiple families, to be able to then build a home for your own family, for one family to live in, that I'd say is really kind of still the American dream.
Cyrus Garvin would have been considered a giant in this community. Like there wouldn't have been a man in Bluffton who didn't respect him. So his house is a place where people in the community come to hang out, to receive services, to receive goods. His farm is like Costco. You come here to get corn, you come here to get, livestock, but it's not just that immediate service piece, it's the other social pieces. He's one of the first people in Bluffton to register to vote, 1868. He buys a piece of property in 1878 and gifts it to a church. It's unreal. Like, he would have been the hometown hero. He would have been the guy that people would have said, I want to be like him when I grow up.
So the Reconstruction era, we don't have a lot of written documentations, but now we have the Garvin-Garvey house that we can use as a document. This is actually pretty rare because, especially in the United States, we tend to tear down our old buildings more than we keep our old buildings. This is one of those survivors which is pretty much intact of what it would have looked like in the 1870s up until the turn of the last century.
For a nonprofit organization or a city like Bluffton, it could cost a lot less to tear one of these homes down. But I think what Bluffton and the Edisto Island Open Land Trust is doing is really understanding the importance of what these structures mean to history. The responsibility of historians and people that want these stories to be told, I think that it's an investment worth making.
The structure is obviously significant. The people are obviously significant, but it wouldn't be here if there hadn't been a focus to preserve it, and that required an understanding of why it was worth preserving.
Structures like this are really rare. I know of only a handful of freed people's homes that survive in Beaufort County. So the Garvey house is precious. It is a rare physical link to one of the most important periods in the history of this area.
Restoration, you want to pay a lot more attention to how it was built. So going back when Cyrus put this thing together is kind of the way I looked at it. It was hound-found stuff. If we couldn't find it, we looked for it. And I went to Savannah, I went to Charleston, I went back to Walterboro to find stuff that met the requirements for when that year and the structure was built. So that's a true restoration.
So this is actually a tangible tool of how we can study the past. It's one thing to read about a house or read blueprints about how the house was put together. It's something entirely different to be able to walk through it and sit in it and examine materials and look at how things interact with each other. So that's what makes this house, for me personally, very special, because I can look at exactly what I would have expected to see in the 1870s.
As far as what we had to work with, when we basically, because we had to take some of it apart, and we methodically kind of made like a little shed area. We took the pieces down, we photographed just to know where these pieces went and just labeled it on the back to get it back right as close as possible, repairing things, everything in kind. This is an original sill. So as we walk around, I can give you an example of where something was questionable. And again, even looking at all of the sides, this is pretty much original. And you can see where something might have been split and pieced in at a time just because of over time with wind and rain damage and that kind of stuff. But again, if we did run into something, we don't want it to look brand new, we want to match it. So sometimes we have to beat up a piece of lumber if I can't find a rough hewn piece. Even if it came from the foundation, we would take it, send it through the table saw, keep the rough side, and put the rough side out, you know, which sounds crazy, but it works for this type of a project.
My husband and I lived here for about 10 years. I think starting about 1954, and it was a nice place to live. Well, this was the living room, the fireplace. Oh, very nice. We had the pull-out couch, and this was the closet with all the clothes in it. And this was the fireplace. We had a lot of wood, and they kept the place real warm, even though the river was there, but they kept the place real warm, everything warm.
As far as the chimneys go, as far as restoration, that is the original chimney. Most of it was standing, so the building portion was gone. This was an actual freestanding area. So we went to, this is one of the places where I snuck off to Savannah and tried to find some of the original bricks, and we had great success doing that. So we went in and did point up just to re-secure it, and we dropped a sleeve down inside it because we wanted the thing to be able to be functional.
And across the hall, there was the bedrooms. All the bedrooms was over here. We had two beds and a pull-out couch, and we had the cribs for the baby.
When someone adopted this door a long time ago, and again, I say adopt because it's definitely been shortened over time, and somebody was lucky enough to be able to get this. But again, you didn't have professionals all the time helping you. So if somebody might have went to lunch or went to go get material, I got the door hung. It's upside down. And this is the way we found it. So we left it. And a lot of this is the original paint. You can see as time went on, the different colors would have come through. It would have been natural, then it would have been some form of a white. And as time progressed, you know, different people painted it over the years. But I think it's just something that's neat, because when we came in here, we were 2 feet lower standing in the dirt floor, and I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, it's gotta stay.
All right, this is where the stove was, right here. And there was a table over here, and the dish pan where we washed the dishes and stuff was over here. And in this corner over here, it was a stand. We put the pots and pan or whatever we had over there. And then over here was just whatever we had extra, we put here. Because it was a small kitchen, we didn't have much room to do too many things with.
And as families grew and people needed more room, so there we would have started with an original fireplace and an older fireplace, because this would have been basically a kitchen house. So if there was ever an incident or anything like that, they could close off the main part of the house, get things under control, hopefully. And that's kind of where, you know, this addition had come in.
These homes are alive, they're living. They were built by people, families, men, with their own hands, with materials that they bought proudly or salvaged. They are alive when you visit them. You can feel the history in them. You can feel the families that lived here.
Now the question I get, how do I feel when I get here? I got chills right now thinking about it, which is weird, but I put my heart and soul into this thing as he put his heart and soul in it. He put a lot more soul and a lot more heart, because things were easier for me to achieve. I mean, everything that he brought here had to have been drugged by him, brought by wagon, and after moving all that stuff here, still had to go to work before and after he went to work. So it just brings me a lot of joy being able to put this place back together and see it kept up, kept restored, and for everybody to come through here and say, wow, this is what it really used to look like. Yeah, it really does.
So I think the heart of this project, or heart of this house, is actually in the resiliency of the human spirit. Mr. Garvin, obviously born into slavery, becomes a freedman, builds the property, maintains the property, and becomes profitable in his life. So I think that's what makes this house actually pretty special.
This is a very, very unique historical location. You cannot find this everywhere across the country, so I think embracing the uniqueness of our local history is key, and then also being able to take that and then apply it to the broader context of American history, the story of freedom, the story of resilience.
So it's really nice to see that there is kind of just a symbol of my history sitting here in my backyard. I only live 5 minutes away from here, so it's really nice to see that my culture is being embraced and the story is being told as authentic as it can be told. So I'm very happy that this is a place that I can come and visit at any time.
It is a testament to young people, especially African-American young people, of what resilience, what business savvy, what this kind of ingenuity looks like. But not just African-American kids. Like, if you're from Bluffton, you can build anything. If you're from Beaufort County, you can get anything done. If Cyrus Garvin could take himself, navigate across that river every day to go and work, and then come back every day at the house that he built, there is no better representation of what the American dream looks like than Cyrus Garvin. He really is an American hero in that sense.